one thing I'm noticing is a lot of men believe they are alone in how they think about these things, but actually through talking to hundreds of men, if not thousands, we've all got the same problem. We all fear the unknown. We all fear being exposed. Through society's conditioning, we've all lost touch with the essence of what it is to be a man. And when something like an MMA program, which isn't designed for fighters, it's literally designed for the layman to train. The guys in their late 30s, 40s, 50s, it's designed for the guy who is just wanting to experience what it's like to train like a fighter, what it's like to push themselves to a limit they haven't really done before, what it's like to experience learning new skills and being an absolute beginner. And a lot of men love the idea of this, love the thought of it, but when it comes to actually putting it into practice, they run away, because society is so weak, so conditioned, and so removed from what it is to be a man, that when you're given an opportunity to do something that men have done for eons, it terrifies us, because I believe it's something within us all, something inside of us. It strikes fear into our hearts because we know deep down we're going to be exposed. There's a risk here. People are going to see you and you're going to be shown how far you've fallen. When we think about doing something, when we talk about doing stuff, when we are able to just hide behind our stories, we can create a conversation in our own minds that becomes our reality, that we can fight, that we can handle ourselves, that we're fitter than we are, that we can still do 50 push-ups like we do when we're 24, that we can still run 6 miles. And as long as we can say that and people listen to us and don't challenge us when we're safe. But then you've got guys like me who will always challenge and go, well, put your money where your mouth is, step up to the plate and show what you can do. And that's a threat. And personally, my belief is there are so many men now who are actually terrified of having real conversations that challenge us and being pushed and challenged to actually do what we say we're going to do. So we're given a really simple out. You know, we can run away from it, we can avoid it, and so many of us do. And then not only do we avoid it, but we get angry when others challenge us about it. That's pretty sad to think that so many men are more willing to live a life of fear, never truly understanding their limitations, never truly discovering their limitations, over the fear of those limitations being exposed. It's like a conundrum, isn't it? But that mindset, it leaks into our being and it becomes a very integral part of us. And we start looking upon the opportunity as the problem. I see Weathered Warriors as an opportunity for so many men out there to embrace the masculinity within, to discover where their barometer of abilities lie. And when you find that truth, when you find what is true, you discover the difference between the story and reality. And that distance, it's the bullshit story. That is what you got to remove. Where you believe you should be and where you are, there's a big gap. And the exercise and the training and the willingness to become that man and challenge yourself, that is what closes that gap. And you'll find that we all tell ourselves the story of where we would like to be. Well, I can run 5 miles, yeah, I can run 5 miles, yeah, I still do that. Yeah, I can bang out 50 push-ups, yeah. I can do 10 pull-ups, yeah, no problem. Yeah, I can spar 5 minutes, I can give it a good 5 minutes grow, you know. Yeah. We can't, because we're middle-aged men whose lives consist of going to bed probably too late, getting out of bed too early, drive to a job we don't enjoy doing, sitting on our arse doing just mind-numbing work, eating shitty foods to suppress the feelings of anger and frustration, looking in the mirror, hating ourselves and being disgusted at the reflection that stares back at us. And instead of doing something about it, deflecting those emotions and those pains and those frustrations towards the people we love, our children, our wives, our friends, our parents, because we're just so disgusted and so down about how far we've fallen. Like, we've fallen into a hole, a pit of despair, and we have absolutely no way of getting out of it, or that's how we feel. And so we just curl up into a ball in that fetal position and just block out the world, the reality, and instead live in this story that comforts us and convinces us that everything's going to be okay. But it's not going to be okay until we decide to do what men have done for eons: take action. I was talking to a guy in Colombia about this. We've came from a place, the patriarchy, where we were too masculine. We were very angry and dominant, and we project our own traumas on the others, usually the children or the wives or people weaker than us. And this stems from traumas that we didn't heal as adults from childhood. Do you know, this is our ancestors I'm talking about. And they remained in this masculine, toxic environment. But there was a positive side to that. There was an element where we got shit done. We didn't moan, we didn't complain, we just did it. But then the toxic side of it was we didn't moan, we didn't talk about it, we didn't complain, we just did it, we just suffered it. And over the last 20 years, that seesaw sort of tipped. And I think we came to a point where we could have been found balance, but we've now passed that part, and we're now in a place where we're too feminine. We're applauded for being feminine. It's celebrated, and there's a definite war against masculinity. And because so many are so far removed from what it is to be a man, when this narrative is projected onto us about how it's great to be feminine and embrace the feminine side, and we're 50% feminine, our mothers and all, a lot of scared men run with it and use it as a way to avoid becoming the men they know they want to become but don't know how to. You see, there's magnetism and electricity. Women are magnetic, women are emotional. Women react from an emotional perspective a lot more than men. Men are electric. We manifest, we just get shit done. But the war on masculinity, toxic masculinity, that message has been pushed for so long now that it's actually taken root. It's embedded into the very minds of so many men, and it's led us to a place where men don't know how to be men anymore. Like our boys, the up and coming generation, they have no clue what they're going to do. I don't know how they're going to cope. They will cope, like every generation does, but there's something dying every generation that moves forward, and men need to reclaim the masculine within us all. And we do need to look at ourselves and remove the toxic elements. But just because there's toxic elements of masculinity doesn't mean there are really good points as well. There are really toxic elements of femininity. Women today they're so toxic. So many of them are traumatized and angry, and they've been given validation and an opportunity to express this, but at the expense of men. It's almost like the role reversal, the way men treated women many generations ago. It's now happening, and somehow this is justified because, well, you done to me so I can do it to you. But that doesn't heal. That just keeps a perpetual wheel going, and the way it will eventually come full circle again if we allow this to continue, and men again will become the dominant species. And because men are dominant, we are muscular, we are stronger, we've got strength, we are violent, the future generations of women will pay the price of what the women today are doing. Not all women obviously, but a lot of them. You can see it on social media, and it's been done purposefully. It's those in power who have allowed this to happen, have manipulated, have ensured that it will happen like this, because it needs to be like this, because they need to divide us. They need to keep us at loggerheads with each other, wanting to blame each other for our doings. And by giving us permission to blame something else, it stops us having to look inside ourselves and take ownership of everything that we do. But the power found within owning your shit, the strength to be discovered and cultivated from acknowledging that you're the creator of all your experiences. Ultimately, the blame stops with you. When you can look at that and you can accept that and you can own that, no one has power over you anymore. And I think there's just a victimhood in society today that's applauded and praised. And it's so easy to be victims, to get praise on social media from people who don't know, but makes us feel validated and like seen and heard. It's so much easier than having to go through the struggle, the actual pains that, while maybe hard to embrace and do, are the key to us finding genuine, true happiness. And I find that so sad. I find it frustrating because I've spent so many years in that victim story, and I've also spent so many years now discovering paths and ways out of it, that I can see there's a route for everyone, no matter who you are, to claim back your life and discover what it's like to truly live again. But it requires you to do it. No one's going to do it for you. And I was listening to some podcast, I think, the other day, and the guy was talking about an experiment they'd done, and it was they got a group of women to come in to go for an interview, and they said the experiment they were going to do was they wanted to see how women were treated if they had facial disfigurements. So they placed a prosthetic scar on her face, let her see it and check it out, and then they called her in for the interview. And on the way to the interview, they stopped her and said, "Oh, let me touch this scar up a wee bit just to make it look a bit more real." And in that process, they removed the scar, but the woman didn't know this was happening. I don't know how they've done it. I'm just repeating the story I heard. And they went through the interview, and then they were asked how they felt. And the women came out, and quite a few of them were saying they felt they were rejected, or their facial scar was the main focus of the interviewers, and they felt they were seen less of, and it made them feel lesser themselves. And the whole idea of the experiment was to show how, if you're told a story, it can create victimhood, and that we all turn to live in that victim story because it's easy. And now you think about all the movements, all the agendas that are put to our children and put through media, and the trends that are applauded on social media sites. Whatever the agenda is that they want pushed, they want the main body of people to focus on. It's given rewards in views on social media, in praise and comments and likes, follows, this false perception that you are popular. And the fact that we've got grown men, grown women, like parents, embracing this and acting as if it's something amazing to do, tells us where we are as a society and shows us a glimpse into the future. Because our children, they are going to take what they see us doing, take it as their barometer of acceptability, and run with it. I dread to see what my grandchildren's lives are going to be like. And the only way we can change this, in my opinion, is through men. And I don't mean that in a sexist comment or in a sexist way. I mean men are structure. Women are chaotic. That is their nature. That is not an insult. The very essence of Mother Earth. Earth is a chaotic realm. The sun, its structure, it's constant, it's always there. Father Sun's rays penetrate Mother Earth, fertilise the seeds, and Mother Earth creates life. Because women are chaotic and men are structure. And for the earth to be in balance, and for society, humanity to be in balance, we need the emotional magnetism of the feminine and the structure of the masculine. Divine masculine's role is to create structure on earth and provide shelter and a space of safety for the divine feminine to express herself, be who she needs to be, and create the life. And in doing so, we bring balance and harmony to earth. But we're so out of whack because of the invisible microwaves coming through our body, and the 5G, the 4G, and all these rays that we don't see that are having a detrimental effect on our lives. And the first thing we have to do as men is acknowledge this is true. We've spent 3.5 years calling anyone who went against the mainstream narrative a conspiracy theorist. We laugh at anything outside of the medical field of discovery as woo-woo and alternative. But in my journey, my experiences, I can say with absolute certainty, there is so much we can learn from embracing the energy and the thoughts and the processes from times long gone. We're intelligent, our IQ, well, it's starting to drop now, but it's always been on the rise, or so they tell us anyway. But we have a great way of being able to take the information we see, digest it and apply it. But what we've seemed to have forgotten is the ability to trust our own gut and trust our own eyes. We can see things, we can feel things, but because the experts tell us it's not so, we just ignore it. We remove it. And that's removing our own abilities. We are the only ones having this experience of our reality. You're the only man or you're the only woman that will ever see me the way you see me. I am the only man that will ever see anyone ever see the way I see them. Our reality is based on our own perceptions, which is built upon our thoughts, what we consume, our experiences, who we surround ourselves with, the environment we live in, our culture. They have all a massive role to play in how we perceive the world. And currently how we perceive the world is how social media and the media channels tell us to do so. But that's an agenda. And we have first got to recognise this as the truth and realise that as men, we must start taking control back so our children have a better chance of having a better life than what we're currently experiencing. The life we're experiencing, the agenda that we're all living through, has happened because of the cowardice of men, and this will never change until men decide to make a change. But in order to make a change, we must first be the change that we want to see. And in order to be the change we want to see, we must embrace who it is we must become. And in order to embrace who we must become, we must force ourselves to do things differently. And that means accepting struggle as part of life. Going towards it rather than running away from it. And for me, one of the most crucial fundamental elements of being masculine is acknowledging that we all come from warriors. Our ancestors stood on the battlefield with swords, axes, spears, shields. They killed. They were willing to be killed for king and country and all the jargon. But the reality is, most of the men done it because they had children and wives to protect, and that they believed that this was what they had to do. It was a duty. And now, while we may have moved on and evolved so that we're no longer that type of animal, we should acknowledge that that essence of man still exists within us, and that we should recognise it, acknowledge it, and honour it. Because in my experience, the most honourable men are the men who embrace the violent side of them, recognise that there is violence within us all, but harness it in a way that is beneficial. Martial arts teach you so many more lessons than just how to fight. It teaches you that there's always someone bigger and better than you. You recognise that there's evil in the world, and that it's our duty as men to equip ourselves with the tools that, should we ever need to, we can use against that tyranny. And right now there's a government and an agenda that is tyrannical, but we don't have enough men willing to stand up, because there's not enough men have the self-belief that they can handle that they can do anything about it. And that's been born through this lack of embracing the masculine within us all. And it's never too late to discover that. It's never too late to reignite that flame. It just takes a spark. And I believe weathered warriors is one of those sparks, because I have seen so many men in my 23 years of doing MMA. And I remember I started my first martial art when I was 8 years old, so 38 years of my life has been involved in martial arts in some shape or form. And I've seen men through that journey from all ages embrace it and become a better version of themselves, one who's willing to live in honour, one who's willing to live with their own morals and stand up for them and stand by them regardless of what the other opinions of others are. Ask any MMA fighter you'll ever see, or any coach. You see the toxicity of the male species in the MMA arenas. When you go to fights, especially in the early days, now the audience is more educated, but in the early days, when you went to the fights and you were fighting, the armchair fighters, those watching, would have always had something to say to the fighters who got beat. Oh, you should have done that, you should have done this, fuck, I would have done that. But then when you offered them the chance to shit themselves and run away, every man needs to know what it's like to get punched in the face. Every man needs to know what it's like to get beat bested. Every man needs to know what it's like to best another. Because within those lessons, there's a change in each and every one of us. I love MMA because it gives you the opportunity to recognise your limitations, where your feelings are, and it also offers you the opportunity to do something about it, to take action. And when you take action, it exposes, or it shows you a different side of you. It helps you tap in to what it is to be a man. And I know I go on about this, but it is so true. We are men. And just like there's a movement right now about honouring women and embracing what it is to be a woman, men should be embracing what it is to be a man. And what it is to be a man is to be willing to die to protect your family, your loved ones, to go out and provide for your family, to meet with other men and just do things that women don't get, and they don't have to get them, because we don't get half the shit that women do, and we don't need to get them because we're not women. But we need to embrace what it is to be a man, and we need to have lessons, we need to learn, and we need to experience what it is to be a man, so that we can pass that knowledge on to the future generations of boys who are going to become men. The tribal communities, they have got things right that we have got wrong. The rite of passage that every man must go through is probably one of the reasons why indigenous tribes exist in such harmony. I experienced that in Colombia with the indigenous tribal people and how they lived in what we would describe as poverty, but what I experienced is absolute bliss and happiness. I learned what true happiness was. The removal of the material and the embracing of the spiritual and the essence of to be a man or woman, that togetherness. It was truly one of the most beautiful experiences I've ever had. And a man's role is to honour the woman. A man's role is to honour the feminine. We came from our mothers, we marry our wives, we raise our daughters, but yet for some reason we think it's okay to crack one off for porn, and we think it's funny to send a video of some girl who's recorded herself having sex with her boyfriend and it's been leaked, and we think it's acceptable to go, I'd book her, she's great, and all that disgusting language that's just been socially acceptable and seen as lads banter. But it's not, because if we were standing there and we watched this video and then we seen all our mates laughing, but it turned out it was our wives or our girlfriends or our daughters or our friends' daughters or our mothers, there'd be hell to pay. We would go to war for it. Again, it's that victim story almost, where we find it easy, we find it justifiable and acceptable to remove the emotional trauma of what's happened to that person, to that woman. But because we don't know them. They're no longer connected to us, so it's okay. It's just guys being guys. That's toxic and it's wrong, and it's holding our own energy down, and it's preventing us from transcending to a different version of ourselves that we want to become. And for me, that's something that men need to learn to do. We need to acknowledge what is acceptable and what isn't, and then take actions towards changing that. I've got a moral code, a moral compass that I live by. Sometimes I break it, but I acknowledge it, and I sit with it, and it doesn't make me happy. It embarrasses me, and I feel I've let myself down. And by let myself down, it means I've let my children down, I've let Gail down, I've let my parents down, I've let people who rely on me down, because I allowed weakness to take over me. Put yourself that higher standard, it becomes a way of being, and that way of being then infects those around you, and that way of being will either infect them in a positive way if you're holding yourself true to that moral compass that you decide you should do so too, or it affects them in a negative way when you justify not doing what you know you should. And your body, mind and spirit are all connected. The Trinity, it's where it comes from. We should honour our bodies. They're the only one we're going to have. I've lost 2 parts of my body and I feel it. My hips are gone, and that was traumatic. To go in and know that someone's going to slice you open, dislocate your hip, take a massive saw, cut it off, hammer a big spike through your femur, so like smooth out the inner part of your pelvis, jam a cup in there, and then stick it all back in and sew you up. It's traumatic, trust me. Now I'm glad I've got the hips now because I'm pain free to a certain degree, obviously, but it's helped me honour my body and recognise just what it is we've got, or what it is I've got here, and how blessed I am to have a body that functions well, allows me to do the things that I want to be able to do. And I understand that the mindset that I cultivate will determine the actions that determine how my body functions. And then I know that the foundation of all that is the spiritual, the emotional side of things. And that's why I've went deep into the healing work, the plant medicines, and the self-discovery of who it is I am. That's a question I ask regularly. Who am I? I am. Probably the 2 most powerful words you'll ever use. I am scared. I am tired. I am fat. I am ugly. I am useless. I am beautiful. I am strong. I am strength. The word that comes after I am determines who we become, who we feel we are. And that's why I hit the words I am in pain. I am not in pain. I am a man who has a pain upon me. I am experiencing a moment of pain, but I am not associating, I am not attaching the pain to who I am. And the English language is set up in a way to make that happen, to make us believe that we are the experience. It's casting a spell upon us. Words have power, that's why it's called spelling. And we've got to be careful with the words. And the words come from the thoughts. So we've got to make sure that what we think and what we allow into our minds are things that are going to help us. And that's power that we have. And that comes from strength as well. How many of you read The Mirror and the Sun and the Star? The garbage, the just bullshit, the visionary topics designed to be sensational and create that element and that emotion within us of anger and disgust and division. We choose to do that. It may be autonomous now, and it may be easier to just do it than it is to say no, but we've still got the power and ability to say no, and that requires now strength, and that requires character, and character is only formed by being willing to make a change. And being willing to make a change is embracing this martial arts side of things, the martial arts side of life. And that's what the Weathered Warriors can offer. When you join something like the Weathered Warriors, and I'll be coaching it, so it's my philosophies, my ideas, my morals. It's going to be more than just a martial art program. It's encompassing everything that the modern middle-aged man needs. There's meditation if you want them. I'll be meditating. I'll be doing the meditating sound bowls and ensuring that the frequencies and vibrations that are going into our ears and affecting us are positive. And that gives you the opportunity to just sit in silence and allow thoughts to come up, and then analyse the thoughts, digest the thoughts, speak about the thoughts afterwards, have a different perspective of the thoughts. And then you've got the physical side of things, the exercise, the training. And the martial arts not only offers you the physical, it also offers you the mental side better than most things, because you're going to be tested. Your ego's going to be tested to its ultimate abilities, and you're going to have to come into that position where you recognise, I don't have a tap here, I'm going to suffer this pain, or I've been best here, I need to allow myself to accept I'm beaten. Either one's a lesson, because so many of us want to be out of pain, want to get out of discomfort, so we tap out very fast and quickly and make up excuses, but we know deep down we just quit. And then there's others who I fall in this category as well. I can fall on both sides. We all fall on both sides, I suppose, where someone's got you in a submission and it's only a role. You can tap out and you're going to end up getting injured if you don't, but your ego's telling you no, because you're going to get slagged. But that's fine to get slagged. It's fine to experience that joking from other friends and having a bit of banter, because you'll do the same to other guys, and it allows you to either decide to wallow in self-pity and go into your childhood traumas and allow them that inner child to be expressed in a negative way, or you can learn to laugh at it. You can learn to embrace the joke, the acceptance of what is. And there'll be discussions, there'll be talks, there'll be deep, meaningful conversations, because when you get together with a group of guys and you're in a very intimate setting, doing things that you're in close proximity to each other, and there's a rawness of truth to what you're doing, it's inevitable that the conversations change to a deeper, meaningful level. But that allows you to say things and express things and hear things in a way that modern society has forgotten to do and almost like laughs at. And it's I hate to say it, but it's chicken soup for the soul, because I hate chicken soup. But that saying, it's chicken soup for the soul, is so true, because it does soothe you to know you're not alone, and that there's others out there who think like you and act like you and want to engage with you. And that engagement of challenging conversations and a difference of opinions, and it just opens you up to a different way of thinking. And it's the way of thinking, your thoughts, that change you who you are fundamentally as a man. Anyway, stop rambling. Hope to see you all soon.